Hey everybody, welcome back to Strong Vinyasa. My name is TéQuan, you can call me Tay, and today we are talking about Chaturangas. Yes, they are part of our Vinyasa flows. Are we doing them right? Are we doing them wrong? My shoulder is hurting, maybe I'm a little bit wonky in one shoulder. I want to clear all of that up today, and I also wanted to give you some movement practices that you can do to start building strength in your shoulders and your arms. A lot of the times we are really strong in our lower half of the body and really weak in our upper half of the body, and that is totally normal, totally cool. So today let's tackle that first and foremost. So let's hop into our Chaturanga position. Come into a nice plank position on your mat. Now first things first, let's talk about the wrists. This is a lot of weight on the wrist at the moment, and one thing that we can do to alleviate that pain is by grabbing into the ground, taking a nice big chunk out of the ground with our fingers. This will alleviate some of the pain that we have when we're hanging out on the wrists. To do a little bit of wrist workout prior to your practice is always good. So let's go ahead and give a few circles coming down onto the knees and just rolling over one way, pressing the palms firmly into the ground, rolling it the other way. And then what I like to do is I like to take my fingers, point them towards my knees, wrists pointing outwards. I like to do a simple cat-cow here, but as I send my hips back, as I round, I get a deeper stretch in my wrists. So, cat-cows, inhale, open up, arch the back, chin high to the sky. As I round my back here, I'm gonna sit my hips back and I'm gonna feel a deeper stretch in the wrist. Inhale, arch the back. Exhale, round it out. Beautiful. You can do this prior to your practice. This is gonna help warm the wrist up. Let's get back into our plank position really quickly. Let's talk about the shoulders. So my shoulders are stacked on top of my wrists. I'm pushing through the ground and I'm feeling a roundness in the back of my shoulders. We don't wanna sink into our joints here. We want to make sure that we are here, pushing into the ground, feeling the maximum resistance instead of sinking in. Let's talk about our heels. Most of the time, our heels are pointing backwards. We're here chilling in our plank position. And what we really want is the heels to be stacked on top of the toes. Let's talk about our cervical spine, our neck. Our gaze is down and slightly forward, and we're trying to make a nice clean line all the way back. So this is just our plank position, right? This is one of the many parts of the Chaturanga, just the starting foundation of our Chaturanga. So let's run through that one more time. I'm grabbing into the ground. My wrists are stacked under my shoulders. I'm pushing through the shoulders, trying to create as much space between my ears and my shoulders. My heels are stacked over the toes. And breathe for 3, for 2, on 1. Come on down, release the knees. Let's go ahead and hop into the next part of the Chaturanga, where we come down. Now this is where I feel like it takes the most strength because you have to have a little bit of resistance from the ground. You're sitting about halfway. So let's go ahead and hop back into our plank position. Take a deep inhale while we're here. I want you to begin to drop the knees as you exhale, uncurl the toes, and I want you to come down halfway. Now let's check this really quickly. My elbow points are pressing into my rib cage. I'm not out here, I'm right here, stacked. My shoulders are in line with my elbows, so they're not down here, they're not up here, they're right in line with the elbows. And my wrists are stacked under my elbows. Breathing for 3, engage the core, for 2, inhale, upward facing dog, exhale, downward facing dog. So even with my knees dropped down to the mat, that can be a bit of a workout. So what we want to do now is try to build up enough strength so where we can actually enter a full Chaturanga properly without the knees. But working with your modification, what we just did just now, is going to help you build that strength. what I like to do if I'm really feeling weak in my upper body is do really close-knit push-ups with my elbows like driving into my rib cage. So push into the ground, find your plank position. Slowly come all the way down. Elbows into the rib cage. Bring it down, uncurl the toes. Curl the toes again, elbows pointing back, push all the way back up. And again, come all the way back down. Keep your elbow points in. Uncurl the toes. Curl the toes, push back up. A few of these a day is going to really help to build your chaturangas. What I used to do when I first started my chaturangas, I used to do this number here where I would drop the knees, uncurl the toes, and then I do this little position where I would like slide through and move up. And I started feeling a lot of pain in my shoulders. And I had learned that kind of a practice just from seeing it from other yoga teachers, seeing it from people in other studios, and I started realizing like, maybe there's something wrong with my chaturanga. Maybe there's like something not right. I asked my yoga teacher, and they told me that that is like a really big misconception, that you have to come down, roll through, and slide up. You're actually putting a lot of strain on your shoulders. So what they taught me to do was to come into plank position. Right, my wrists are stacked under my shoulders. You shift your body weight forward onto the tippy toes. That way when you come down, your elbows are stacked on top of the wrists. Your shoulders become in line with your elbows. And there's a little bit more strength there to play with as opposed to this like motion of trying to go through your chaturangas. So what that started to look like for me was I'd be in a plank position. I'd shift the weight forward, I'd come down, and then I'd just come straight back up and move into my upward facing dog. Over time, my shoulder pain started to dissipate, and this became a really great way for me to enter into my chaturangas. So, moving back into our plank position, I want us to try this. If you want to use the modification, you can use the modification of dropping down to your knees. Otherwise, let's go ahead and try this in its full capacity. Press your palms firmly into the mat, plank position. Shift the weight forward, past the wrist onto the tippy toes. Slowly make your way down. Elbow points are pressed into the rib cage, and then begin to lift up, upward facing dog. Chaturangas burn, they build strength, they're not easy, but over time they do become a lot easier to deal with. Especially if you're in Ashtanga, if you're doing vinyasas regularly, you want to make sure that we're doing these practices properly so that way we're not destroying our shoulders, we're not destroying our back, and we can do this a lot longer. So let's run through everything that we learned today really quickly. From our warm-ups, come on down to your knees. You're going to be giving a few circles over the wrists. You can do the simple cat-cows with your fingers pointing towards the knees here. And as you round the back, you're going to shoot those hips back. That's our warm-up for the wrist. Let's talk about our shoulders. We're going to make sure that when we're in plank position, we're going to be pushing into the ground, sending the body up, finding as much length between your ear and your shoulders, and breathing. Heels are stacked on top of the toes. This is our strong plank position. Moving into our modification, you would drop the knees, uncurl the toes, shift the weight forward past the wrist, and then slowly lower. Elbow points into the rib cage. And all you're doing is pushing back up into your upward facing dog. The other way, plank position. Heels are stacked over the toes. Shift the weight forward past the wrist. Slowly lower down. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Beautiful. All right, you guys, I hope that this helps out with your practice. My shoulders are burning, they're on fire right now. Yours should be too. Again, 5 minutes of this a day. Take whatever you can from this today, whether it be the warm-up, the modification, anything that you can to start building a strong chaturanga. They are vital to so many parts of the practice. You can start doing really great arm balances once you start to understand your chaturangas. And I hope that you have the most wonderful rest of the day. I will see you here next time on the mat. Have a beautiful one. Bye.